Good morning. I am so glad you are with us today here in the sanctuary or at home on Zoom or on Facebook or maybe even watching this later on YouTube. Know that you are so welcome here. Whether this is your first time or your thousandth time, whether you are here with us in the sanctuary or if you're home in your pajamas drinking coffee, we are so glad you are here with us this morning. I have a practice of lighting a special candle in the world when there has been an unspeakable tragedy, whether person-made or natural, that happens right before a Sunday service. And so I'm going to ask you, Karen, to light that candle for the people who were massacred yesterday in Buffalo by a white supremacist at a supermarket. I ask that you hold them and their families and their community in your hearts and your prayers this morning. Know that gun violence and white supremacy and racism have once again upended lives in America, and we will be talking more about this next week. So, we're all going to talk about sex this morning. We've sequestered the children far away. There'll be other times to talk with them about sexuality. When I introduce myself to people, whether it's at a cocktail party or whether it's on an airplane, and someone says, as they often do, well, what do you do? I answer that I'm a sexologist and a minister. And someone usually laughs. In fact, not just someone, sometimes, all the time, someone laughs. See, those words, sexologist, minister, are seen as oxymorons. They're words that don't go together like jumbo shrimp doesn't go together. So today I'm going to be sharing with you about my work as a sexologist and a minister. For more than 45 years now, my vocation has been helping people understand that sexuality is a central part of our life. No matter how old you are, what your gender is, what your sexual orientation is, what your relationship status is, sexuality is part of our lives and who we are. And I work to help people understand that sexuality, spirituality, and religion are intimately connected. I wrote the following opening words at the request of the Unitarian Universalist Association for people to use in services on sexual and reproductive justice. You are welcome here. If you are straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, intersexual, demisexual, pansexual, or asexual, or if you resist labels completely, you, my friends, are welcome here. If you are transgender, non-binary, genderqueer, or cisgender, you are whole and welcome here. If you are confused about your sexuality, if you have questions, if you struggle in an intimate relationship, or you struggle because you aren't in one, you are whole and welcome here. If you have had an abortion, an unintended pregnancy, given up a child for adoption, had a miscarriage, have HIV or have AIDS, struggle with infertility or sexual dysfunction, you are whole and welcome here. If you have been the victim of sexual abuse, sexual harassment, or sexual assault, you are whole and welcome here. If in your life you have made sexual decisions that you regret, you are welcome here, and we will help you offer restorative justice and healing. Your sexuality is holy and sacred and an integral part of who each and every one of us are. You are whole and welcome here. As Unitarian Universalists, we will side with you, we will love you, and we will fight for your rights. We seek to create a world where sexuality and sexual diversity is celebrated with holiness and integrity. And so now I'm going to ask you to stand as you are able in the sanctuary, or even maybe at home, and we're going to sing a hymn called Sacred the Body, which is set to the words of a tune you know called Morning Has Broken. These words were created by Reverend Ruth Duck for services about sexuality. The words will be on the slide.
Good morning. My name is Karen Mazzata. I'm today's worship associate. Welcome. We have a few brief announcements. We're calling all UUFH veterans. The Sunday Program Committee is planning a Memorial Day service on May 29th. If you are a fellowship member who served in the armed forces, please email Jim Monnier at optonline.net by May 18th. to let us know if you'd like to share your perspective as a UU veteran. The UUFH Harry Potter kids in grades 3 to 5 are at it again, always looking for ways to make our world better. They're asking fellowshippers to help combat the animal cruelty Horcrux. In doing so, they'll be supporting Little Shelter Animal Rescue and Adoption Center in Elwood and the New York Marine Rescue Center in Riverhead. Jars will be placed in the back of the main hall this week and next for monetary donations, as well as there's a donation box and bin for blankets and dry dog and cat foods to help the animal housing and adoption efforts at Little Shelter. For much more information about this week's announcements, we encourage you to look at our flash, which usually comes out on Thursdays. If you're currently not receiving the flash, you can sign up for it on our website by clicking the tab Sign Up for Events and News. And now, I invite you to settle into your bodies and quiet your minds as we breathe deeply together and enter into our time of worship. This is the time for our chalice lighting, the symbol of our faith. I invite you to light a chalice or candle in your own home as I read these words. From Anam Cara by John O'Donohue. In the deepest sense, the body is the most intimate place. Your body is your clay home. Your body is the only home that you have in this universe. It is in and through your body that your soul becomes visible and real to you. Your body is the home of your soul on earth. Please join me in saying our mission statement. The words will be on the screen. In religious community, nurture our individual spirits, caring for one another, and helping to heal the world. Now please join me in singing our affirmation, Common Ground.
We have a special joy this morning. Doris Lessick is turning 100 years old. Will Peggy Coolius please come forward to introduce all of us to Doris?
Good morning. Okay, I think, can I take this off now? Is that good? Yes. Okay. Well, Doris Gooten was born on May 27th, 100 years ago in New York City, and the world was never quite the same. She grew up in the Bronx and loved to visit the Bronx Zoo. She attended Hunter College, studying home economics, and then went on to Teachers College, Columbia University, to pursue a career as a dietitian. She began working at Columbia Presbyterian and has many funny stories to tell about her time there. In fact, if you hang out with Doris, you will find she enjoys regaling you with funny stories of her long life. At a party with one of her college friends, Doris met a young man named Lenny Lessick, who stayed in touch with her long distance for 5 years when he finally said, "Marry me." They were married here in New York and drove cross-country in a car gifted to them by Lenny's uncle. Doris's son Ronald was born in California, where Lenny was stationed after the war. Her desire for learning and doing was not fazed by motherhood. While walking the streets of Monterey Park on a sunny afternoon, she poked her head into a local newspaper office. She stepped out with a job to write a weekly article on what the hip people of the area were wearing and doing, entitled From the South Side. Leave it to Doris to find her way into the local parties. Lenny and Doris moved back to New York, specifically Huntington, where her daughter Denise was born. While Doris raised her children, she found her way into the School District 13 family and was a Jill of all trades there, subbing in classrooms and filling in where needed, well into her 70s. She met Alice Link, one of our other UUFH centenarians, who was teaching French during her time there. Doris joined many clubs and organizations while living in Huntington. After meeting the town of Huntington archivist, Antonia Matau, who encouraged Doris to enjoy a tour of Town Hall and learn of its history, Doris began offering Antonia's tour as a services auction offering, collecting $5 a pop. She moved on to other churches, helping them earn money and keeping Antonia busy spreading the history of Huntington. She became friendly with town employees and was recently honored by them at a luncheon. And that's not all. While a member of a library book group in South Huntington Public Library, the facilitator suggested Doris run to become a member of their board of trustees. And she did. And she won. She continued her work on the library board for about 20 years and made many friends there, one of whom, Martha, joined her here this morning. Doris loves to tell the story of making her way to a fancy startup opera organization in Huntington, where she was welcomed into a gorgeous home with a spiraling staircase and offered a glass of wine by a beautifully dressed woman. She was unfazed as they went around the room introducing themselves, a philanthropist pledging $5,000, and an opera singer, thousands more. When it was Doris's turn, she simply stated that she was a member of 99 organizations and wanted to make it an even 100. Doris continues to be sharp-witted and engaged wherever she can be at 100 years old. At the end of this month, she will finally allow her daughter to come take her to live with her in Arizona. That's finally because her daughter has been begging her for years. We wish her the very best on her new adventure, and I now ask you to join together to sing Happy Birthday to Doris.
Doris, I too offer my congratulations, and I'm so happy, Doris, that we got to meet each other before you moved. And you all may not know, but Doris's daughter has told her she shouldn't bring anything with her. And so Doris, but I decided I needed to give you something. So I found this little owl, which represents both our whole lives, our program for young people, but also your whole life. And it's really small, so I'm going to ask you, you can put it in your purse and not tell your daughter, okay? And when you look at it, I hope you will remember the people here who love you. I'll give it to you later. And I want you to invite all of you. We will be having cake outside in the Sam Phillips Garden off of the social hall after the service. That's actually hard to say. So I hope you'll join us for birthday cake. Thank you, Doris.
Well, that was one of our best joys ever. Today, we're continuing to experiment with a new way to share our joys and concerns that will better integrate people on Zoom with the people in the sanctuary. So I'm going to read the joys and concerns that have been sent to Reverend Debra. If you want a joy and concern read aloud at this time, you should email it to Reverend Debra on any Sunday. She's preaching by 8 a.m., and it will be read aloud here. You can also write your joy or concern on a piece of paper and give it to the worship associate like me up until the service begins. So today, I'm going to begin with another special joy. Our Board of Trustees member Leslie Speed is a grandmother for the 6th time. Daughter Amber gave birth on Friday to Grant Patrick Steiger, 9 pounds, 5 ounces. Congratulations to the Speed family. Another wonderful joy. Lisa Burby, a good friend of mine, received Outstanding Media Award for Journalism on Long Island from the PR Professionals of Long Island. Congratulations, Lisa. We're also sharing today that Alice Link is in the hospital for a tune-up and probably will be returned home on Monday, tomorrow. She would appreciate cards sent to the home. We're wishing Carol well on an upcoming surgery, sending prayers to Carol. And not ready yet. We actually have a list, which is what you had aspired for. Yes. Reverend Debra asks for prayers for the family of Urvashi Vaid, who died yesterday at 64 of cancer. Urvashi was a leader of the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force and the movement for LGBTQ+ rights. We'd also like to remember Mary Monnier. And do you have more for me? From Zoom? Thank you. We're also remembering Lisa, Nancy, and Jules. To our office director, Sandra's daughter, who is making her dance debut. And are there more? Is that it? I think that's it? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Of course, if you do not wish to share at this time, you simply hold your concern or your joy in your heart in silence. Thank you.
Please join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life and love, we know you by many names, or perhaps just the silent stirring in our hearts. Our hearts break this morning as we learn the details of yet another gun violence mass massacre. Our hearts are with the people of Buffalo, not just those who lost immediate people, but for that community, like so many other communities now shattered as they deal with the results of hatred, racism, anti-Semitism, and violence. We think about the milestone that was reached this week of the 1 million people in the United States who have now died of COVID, and all of the millions of people who mourn them and miss them. We hold in our hearts the family and friends of the death of one too soon from cancer. And we reach out with compassion to those struggling here among us today, preparing for surgery, receiving diagnoses, struggling with financial issues, relationship issues, or just the difficulty of being human in today's world. And yet, we remember to celebrate the birth of one who has been on this planet for 100 years and who has given so much, and who we will miss as she moves away. We celebrate the birth of a new grandchild for all of the babies that were born this week. We celebrate with the accomplishments of one among us who has been honored for their work. And we celebrate the birthdays, the anniversaries, the new relationships, the new jobs, the good news, and the fact that we are here at all, that we are here together, whether in this sanctuary or electronically, but that we have today. We have today a day where spring and then summer is returning, where the flowers surround us, where the water is calm, where through the love we share with each other, we can get by another day to celebrate, another day to be kind, another day to reach out to each other, another day to say yes to life. And so may it be, my friends. Amen.
Our split play for the month of May is Helping Hand Mission Rescue. Helping Hand Rescue Mission. Today, we'll resume our practice of passing the collection plate. Located in Huntington Station, the Helping Hand Rescue Mission seeks to improve the spiritual and temporal conditions of the children, families, and people of the communities they serve by providing excellent service to all who come, whether they be rich or poor. They are here to love, to serve, and to give. The mission has been serving approximately 250 families per week with non-perishable and fresh produce, fruit, meat, and eggs, milk, and bread. And they've given out more than 39,000 food parcels since March 2020. Their dining room recently suffered water damage due to a burst pipe, so contributions are especially needed now. In addition to receiving donations through the collection basket, you can still send a check for the time being to the office always, or donate through the website as seen on your screen. You can also donate through the Vanco mobile app, which can be found in the App Store or Google Play. Please give as generously as you are able, and thank you. We'll be passing the collection plate as we listen to music by Isabella, a reprise, Morning is Broken.
Cat Stevens only wishes he wrote that. That was Mozart. That was my mistake for not updating. Thank you, Isabel. That was lovely. 15 years, for 15 years, I was the president and I was the co-founder of an organization called the Religious Institute on Sexual Morality, Justice, and Healing. On our 10th anniversary, Patrick Evans, a noted composer, created this hymn, When Bodies and Souls Combine, for the celebration of our 10th anniversary, which was held at Union Theological Seminary. We're going to watch a video of that hymn now.
Sacred heart, Creator's gift. and grace, we offer this unceasing prayer for everyone in every place.
If I ever write my memoir, the first line is likely to be, unlike most people, I learned about sex from my parents and religion from my friends. My parents were remarkably open about sexuality. When I was 6, I found my mother's birth control pills in the kitchen, and I asked what they were. And she answered me absolutely directly. She said, "Those are birth control pills. We've had all the children we want, and I take these every day so I can enjoy sex with your father." Honest. And then, when I was 11, my parents took my sister and I on a field trip to Fire Island so we could see gay people. At dinner, we discussed civil rights, the women's movement, and yes, sex. It wasn't until I was in college that I learned that most people don't have those conversations at their dinner table. In fact, I learned that most people grow up with a complicated mixture of misinformation, myths, fears, and shame about their sexuality. And some of that comes from their religion. So I want you to think for a moment about the church or synagogue that you grew up in as a child. And I want to ask you, raise your hands if in that church or synagogue or mosque you learned that your sexuality was a gift from God and you should celebrate it. Okay, we've got the Unitarians here. Sometimes people who are Reformed Jewish raise their hand. So now I want you to raise your hand if you learned that sexuality needed to be controlled, that sexual feelings were wrong, or that sex only belonged in a monogamous, lifelong heterosexual marriage, preferably with procreation as its goal. Okay, so those are the Catholics. The evangelicals, the Nazarenes, the Orthodox Jews. And then some of you who haven't raised your hands, did you get mixed messages about sexuality, or perhaps did you get none at all? Raise your hands. So what you just saw is what happens when I ask these questions all over the United States. That few of us get a message that our sexuality is a gift. Many of us grow up believing it is dangerous and something to be ashamed of. So I first went to seminary when I had a 6-month sabbatical from my job as the president of the Sex Information and Education Council of the United States. And I took Hebrew Bible and Christian scripture classes. Professors were fond of saying to students when we were assigned passages, please read this as if you were reading it for the first time. I was often, I'm pretty sure, the only person in class who was reading them for the first time. See, what I have to tell you, in my Jewish liberal home, my parents would have been happier to have found pornography in my bedroom than to have found a copy of the Christian scriptures. So way back then in 1996, I wrote 1966, that was not right. 1996, I read the Bible as a sexologist. Like many of you, I thought the Bible had only 2 messages about sexuality. What do you think those were? Don't. Absolutely don't. Number 1 message. And if you were going to, you should do it to have babies for procreation. What I want to tell you is that is so far from the truth of the scriptures. Indeed, the very first 2 chapters of the Bible affirm us as sexual beings. So you may remember in Genesis 1, God creates the light from the darkness, the land from the sea, and on the 5th day, God creates human beings. The text says male and female God created them, and then God declares it very good. Up till then, the land, the light, that was only just good. But these people, they were very good. And then, what's the first thing that God says to those human beings? Be fruitful and multiply. In other words, go have sex. Right? That's how you do that, right? And in Genesis 2, we see an alternative creation story, which we know was actually written by another author. But in Genesis 2, it says that God is unhappy for the first time. Does anybody know why God is unhappy? No, that's in Genesis 3. In Genesis 2, God is unhappy because man is alone and sets out to find Adam a companion. And then there's this scene that I always, in my mind, think of as a 1975 SNL skit. So I want you to picture Dan Aykroyd as Adam and John Belushi as God. And in this scene, John Belushi, or God, brings every animal on the earth to Adam and suggests it as a companion. Okay, so Adam, the dog, and Dan Aykroyd goes, yeah, no. And then he says, Adam, the horse, and Dan Aykroyd, or Adam, says no. And he does it all, down to the slug. Like, Adam, the slug. And Dan Aykroyd says no. And it's only when there are no animals left to be named that God creates Eve. So surely you have heard that line from people on the right who say it is Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. But by that text, it actually could have been Adam and Mr. Ed. And the very last line of Genesis 2 affirms sexuality for pleasure. It says, therefore a man leaves his father and mother and cleaves to his wife, and they become one flesh. They were naked and not ashamed. So procreation is completely absent in Genesis 2. So if we take these two versions of the creation story and put them side by side, what do we learn? That the genders are created equally in the image of God. That we need companions and lovers in life. That sex is both for procreation and recreation, and that God is pleased to offer us these gifts. Did you learn that in Sunday school? No. See, these positive sexuality messages, I discovered, continue throughout both the Hebrew Bible and the Christian scriptures, including Jesus' love and welcome messages to the most marginalized, to the eunuchs, who we now know we would consider intersexuals, the sex workers, the woman with many husbands, the people who are caught having extramarital sex, the unmarried adults, and of course, the poor, the widowed, and the orphaned. See, despite what the right proclaims, there is no one model for family life in the Bible. In fact, I counted 37 different ways that adults live faithfully with each other in these truth stories. Now, you all know that yesterday we had Take the Bands Off Our Bodies marches throughout the country. I have vivid memories, and I'm looking at some of you, I think you probably do as well, of January 22nd, 1973, the day that the Supreme Court overturned the ban on abortions in the U.S. I was 18 years old. I was in the student lounge. The TV was on at college, and we were elated. The days of having to arrange for rides for pregnant friends to New York City for abortions were finally over. The days of women dropping out of high school and college to have babies they were ill-equipped to raise were over. We thought then that the right to a safe and legal abortion was secured forever. The first time I marched for women's rights was in 1976. I wore a long white dress with a purple and yellow sash modeled after the suffragettes. I was 22. I have lost track of the times I have marched or spoken at rallies. I marched 28 times since January 2016, as of now, in Washington, D.C. My family, including our 4-year-old, marched for access to abortion in 1989. I was 35. We marched again in 2003, and that time I was a speaker at a worship service on the steps of the Capitol. I was 49. In 2016, I spoke at a rally at the Supreme Court as it heard a case about abortion clinics, and you can actually watch that speech on my website. This past December 1st, I was back protesting at the court, and on Tuesday, I will join a Jewish rally for abortion access in front of the Supreme Court again. That's 45 years of protesting for abortion rights. When we were in front of the Supreme Court in December, I couldn't help but think of that sign I saw at the Women's March in 2020. I can't believe I'm still protesting this. I was 19 when Roe was decided, and 62 when marriage equality became the law of the land, and I thought we were done having to fight. We aren't done, my friends. The last administration worked mightily to roll back sexual rights, even as the president boasted on national TV about his sexual conquests. Last year, 8 states enacted bills against transgender people's rights, limiting their rights to sports, to bathrooms, and even to medical care. And more state laws are being considered now. And I know you know that Texas enacted a ban on all abortions past 6 weeks. The Supreme Court is about to overturn its 50-year decision on Roe. In less than 3 months, my friend, abortion will be illegal in at least 14 states. Think about that. Reproductive justice and LGBTQ rights are intertwined. The Supreme Court case that gave gay people the right to have sex, did you hear that? That gave them the right to have sex if you were gay. That was decided in 2003. And the right to marry are based on Roe's affirmation of a constitutional right to privacy. Both reproductive justice and LGBTQ+ rights are fundamentally about the right to live as an adult with a sexual, intimate life without the government interfering. Every person, every adult's sexual rights, the right to marry, the right to pleasure, the right to bodily autonomy, are in danger if anyone's right to a consensual adult relationship and the right to privacy is imperiled. And this is all happening despite the fact that Americans support sexual rights. 7 in 10 Americans believe abortion should be legal, at least in some circumstances, and even more believe that people who are LGBTQ+ shouldn't face discrimination. People from every religion support the right of individuals to make their own personal choices. And there's nothing new about any of this. More than a dozen major religious denominations passed policies as much as 50 years ago supporting the legal access to abortion. In the 1960s, you may not know that clergy opened the first abortion clinic in the United States at Judson Memorial Church in New York City, and have fought for the repeal of abortion laws. Unitarian Universalists, we were at the vanguard of promoting LGBTQ rights and women's rights. Our first resolution in support of abortion, 1963. Last week, in response to the SCOTUS leak of the Alito decision, the UUA put out a statement that said, quote, "As a faith, we are committed to reproductive justice, which espouses the human right to have children, not to have children, to parent the children one has in healthy environments, and to safeguard bodily autonomy and to express one's sexuality freely." It goes on to say, "Our faith still urgently calls us to advocate on behalf of all people to be able to readily access safe, legal abortion care whenever they need it. We will not rest until the day that is true across the country." In Texas right now, our fellow congregants at the Dallas church are helping pregnant people every week get on a plane to fly to Colorado or New Mexico to have a legal abortion. And I hope that in the coming years, we will take a leadership role in Long Island with helping women in southern and Midwest states obtain safe legal abortions here in New York. And we're going to be talking more about that when I get here as your interim in August. See, we need to call out these immoral attacks on people's rights and moral agency. Laura Penny wrote this in the New Republic last fall. She said, "We live in a society that is comfortable letting men get away with sexual violence, but determined not to let women get away with consensual sex." It's time to be completely clear. Forcing a woman to give birth against her will is morally equivalent to rape. It's the same logic of entitlement and abuse. Men get to control women's bodies. Female sexual agency must be punished. Women's consent doesn't matter. So, my friends, as people of faith, we cannot allow the extreme right to be the voice of religion in the public square. We need to reclaim the Bible, the flag, democracy, and for those of us who are theists, God from those on the right who claim to own them. I once heard the Reverend Al Sharpton at a NARAL dinner say, "It is time for the Christian right to meet the right Christians." And I would add the right Jews, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, and so on. See, we must do a better job of articulating consistent and common sense moral messages. The sin is never sex. The sin is never sexuality. The sin, my friends, is sexual violence, harassment, abuse, and misconduct. The sin is never homosexuality. The sin is heterosexism, the presumption that everyone is a heterosexual. The sin is not being transgender, but being transphobic. The sin is forcing a pregnant woman to carry a pregnancy and give birth against their will. The sin is to deny anyone their God-given right to own and express their sexual and gender identity, or to deny them the information, services, and rights they need to make responsible decisions. See, I believe America understands that the goal of sexuality education is to develop healthy sexual adults who appreciate their own bodies and interact with people of all genders in respectful ways. Our Lifespan Our Whole Lives program helps people make sexual decisions congruent with their values. See, all of us must learn to discriminate between sexual behaviors that are life-enhancing and those that could be harmful to someone else. We must begin to articulate a new moral ethic for a sexual relationship. It is not a wedding band that makes sex moral, or whether the partners are gay, bisexual, pansexual, or straight, but whether the relationship is consensual, non-exploitive, honest, mutually pleasurable, and protected. We as Unitarian Universalists need to proclaim that love is love is love. Everyone must have the ability to affirm their sexual and gender identity and orientation and live without discrimination and violence. We must affirm that freedom of religion means the government can't privilege one religion over another. No single religious voice should speak for all faith traditions on sexuality issues. And I believe that America understands that government should not take sides on these most personal issues. Sexuality, my friends, sexuality in all of its stunning diversity is part of our birthright. The Talmud says, "In the world to come, we will be held accountable for all the good things we didn't enjoy." May each of us, and our children and our grandchildren and their grandchildren and for generations to come, may we all celebrate our sexuality with holiness and integrity. And so may it be. Amen.
And now I ask those here in the sanctuary to stand as you are able to sing our closing hymn, We Are a Gentle, Angry People by Holly Near, with slightly updated words. Those joining us virtually are also invited to sing on mute.
I have to say that verse, we are singing, singing for our lives, seems more true now than ever to me. The closing words this morning come from L.R. Noss, the feminist editor of Holistic Parenting magazine. They write, "Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break, and all things can be mended, not with time, as they say, but with intention. And so go. Love intentionally. Love extravagantly. Love unconditionally. The broken world in darkness awaits the light that is each of you." And now I will say, as I will say each week at the end of our services, my friends, go in peace. May our real service begin. And join us for singing the postlude, Please Rise in Body and Spirit. This is sung to a tune you probably know called "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple." It was rewritten for the Religious Institute for services on sexuality, "'Tis a Gift to Be Loving."
For those of you who are here with us today, you're now invited to enjoy some cake with Doris Lessick on behalf of her birthday, in honor of her birthday, in the courtyard outside the social hall. Have a great afternoon, everyone.